Welcome back to Murder with the Missus. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy. And today we're going to tell you about the Karen Read retrial.
Don't forget to smash that like button. Check out the description for the links of all of our podcast platforms, Cash App, and Buy Me a Coffee. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends. Do not forget to tell your friends, because you know what? They deserve to see us too. And speaking of coming out and seeing us, it is Friday. It's the Friday the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
So come out to Bentley Park in Tulsa or in Bixby, Oklahoma for their freedom celebration. It's a fireworks show. And we're going to have our barbecue truck out there, award-winning barbecue. We'll have our, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
We'll have our barbecue sandwiches, our pulled pork, brisket. Spuds, our smoked spuds, and then we'll have smoked turkey legs and everything. Mm. Y'all come out. It's a great time. Great people.
Come eat. You don't have to cook.
Yeah, exactly. We also are going to have peach tea. Well, sweet tea, unsweet tea, peach tea, cherry limeade. I mean, and water.
Nom nom.
Who the hell wants water? But anyway.
Who needs to hydrate?
Yeah.
There's water in the tea.
There's a lot of other good things out there, but you know, whatever. So anyway, on with the story. I did my little plug.
Sponsored by Country Boy.
Might as well.
Might as well. All right. Here we are again with Karen Read, and we're getting right into it. So if your feed looks anything like mine, her name has dominated it for the last couple of months. Lots of interest, lots of coverage. And we covered the first one, so of course we're going to be back again to cover the second one. If you didn't watch I think it was 8 weeks of trial every single day, you are not alone. Maybe you caught some of the law tubers who do daily recaps or highlights at night. Either way, it's easy to see pretty early on in this trial that this was a completely different trial. We had new strategies, a special prosecutor, and Karen had a special addition to the defense team because she had a new lawyer who was actually a juror from the first trial.
Really?
Interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was actually pregnant with twins during the first trial, and she was a non-deliberating juror. But she came onto the team to help in this case for jury selection and some behind-the-scenes work. So it was pretty interesting. We didn't really see her in court, but she was on the team. And don't get me wrong, the Commonwealth in this one is still Commonwealthing, presenting that Karen dropped John O'Keefe off at the house, backed into him with her Lexus SUV, and left him to die in the front yard of the Alberts house. And in trial one, the defense pushed conspiracy, cover-up conspiracy, right? But that didn't work. So their focus this time was science. So let's talk about it. One of the things you see when people tell the same story over and over and over is that sometimes that story is going to change a little bit. And that's what we saw with Carrie Roberts. Now remember, she was driving Karen around looking for John that morning when they found him.
Mm-hmm.
Before, it was that she had heard Karen tell Jen McCabe to make the infamous Google search, "How's long to die in cold?" But now, she says that she didn't actually hear Karen say that. She was told that Karen said that. Now that's a big difference. It's not a case-breaking difference, but when people think that there's an ear witness to something that was said, they're more likely to believe that that's what was said.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes a difference.
It really can. And speaking of Jen McCabe, we heard from her in this trial too. And it was one of those testimonies that frustrated the shit out of me. She drove me nuts. We did hear about her call logs. There was a question of whether or not she deleted things off of her phone. There was a question, the Commonwealth actually had an expert testify that your phone keeps 200 calls in your call log. Now, since Jen had made over 200 calls in just under 3 days after John died, God dang woman.
It's actually, be honest, it's actually easier than you think. You wouldn't think that you would have that many calls. It's actually easier done than you would think.
200 calls in 3 days?
Yep.
I don't want to talk to anybody that much.
Hell, you ain't lying. Shit, I've been talking about getting rid of my damn phone.
No.
Over this thing. Tired of people calling.
Oh, you're not. So she made all those calls. So what they're saying is, since it was over 200, that calls 201 and older would have been removed from the log. Not that she had not accidentally, not that she had actually deleted them, but that the phone took them off the log.
Mm-hmm. So they can't say that she had deleted them or not.
There's no way to tell.
Yeah.
Because if you deleted call number 207, they're not going to know that because they can't see that.
Yeah.
Now, she did admit that there were calls made to John that she had to admit because they had John's phone in his call log, and he definitely didn't make 200 calls in those 3 days. But she said she accidentally butt dialed him 7 times in 19 minutes.
Okay.
The night he died. After he died.
Okay.
What? So once you get
she said she butt dialed him?
Yes. 7. There was 7 calls made to John from her phone, and she said they were all butt dials.
Butt dials.
In 19 minutes. Yeah.
That was a busy butt.
That butt was booking it. Now, once you get past the shock of this whole family and their uncanny ability to butt dial people, the question for me is, where are the voicemails? Because remember that Brian Albert and Brian Higgins also accidentally butt dialed each other that night. There were no voicemails found that I'm aware of. And I always get a voicemail if I get an accidental butt dial. Because if it's an accidental call, you don't know you're making it, which means you can't hang it up, which means it's going to play in that voicemail. Believe what you want on that one, I guess. She was also asked about not going up to the house and knocking on the door. I mean, your friend was found on your sister's front lawn. There's blood. He has 2 black eyes. He's covered in snow. And so that shows he's been there for a while. But you didn't see him laying there when you left the house and went home. So you don't know what's going on. But you aren't worried about your brother-in-law and your sister that are inside the house. You don't want to make sure they're okay. So this is why AJ's asking her, like, you don't really care? And she said no. She said she knew that John O'Keefe had never come inside the house that night. She says that Karen was sitting over there saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him on repeat. And she had a broken taillight on her Lexus. So her focus, Jen's focus, was on helping her friend John, not her sister.
I mean, there were 2 other people there to do CPR.
Right. True.
I mean, I would take a second to go, bang on the door.
Yeah. Hey, sister, you good?
Yeah.
But no. And it's not a huge yard. It's not like she would have had to trek half a block to the front door. It would literally be right there. According to the defense, it only took John 22 seconds or so to get there, but I digress. She did eventually go into the house through the unlocked front door. She went upstairs and did her best Cosmo Kramer entrance through their bedroom door to wake them up after the first responders had got there. They still never came outside. Now, I saw in an interview where Brian Albert said, what was I supposed to do? Run out front in my underwear and start running yellow tape around the fire hydrant?
Really?
Seriously.
I'm telling you, man, this one right here, I think they beat the hell out of him. I think this is just a big ass cover up and they're just trying to blame her on it.
That's what her defense team has been saying this whole time. That's what I think
it is. That's what I thought from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he went up there and everything. They was all drinking and bullshitting and everything. They got into their little slap box fights or whatever. And they fucking, and then that guy ended up beating the shit out. I don't know which one it was. Probably this dude.
They think it was Brian Higgins.
Okay, whichever. One of the Brians.
The ATF agent.
Yeah. But either way, I think it's just a big ass cover up is what it is.
Yeah, because this interview was an interview that the McAlberts did together after this second trial. So this was within the last couple of days that we're recording this, that they've come out and said this. So they are still on one. But we've heard all their versions of events in the last trial, but not in this one. We didn't hear from them. We didn't hear from the lead investigator on the case. We know that the investigation itself was investigated by the FBI. So they were the he who must not be named in this trial. And they managed to keep from saying those 3 little letters throughout the trial, which I thought was impressive. There was a lot of use of another agency and the other agency, but they could not say FBI. What they did fail on was that they were also not supposed to say that they had a prior trial. It was supposed to be a prior proceeding and stuff like that. That didn't work. People said the trial, the first trial, the trial, the whole way through. So couldn't go around that one.
Yeah.
They tiptoe around good old boy Michael Proctor so much that we were all wondering, like, did the jury think he was dead, right? Because he's not there. He's not testifying. They keep talking about former Detective Michael Proctor or whatever they were calling him. So we didn't know, do they think he's dead? Do they know he got fired? But it all came out in closing finally that he was fired. He lost his job because of this case, because of what he did in the Karen Reed case. His buddy, Yuri Buchanek, I've heard it pronounced Buchanek, so many different ways, but I'm going to call him Yuri, was his supervisor. So he was the one who was left to answer all these questions for the trial. He was also in trouble because of his failure to properly supervise Proctor. So he lost a whole 5 vacation days because of it. Poor guy. But he had a very rough time on the stand because he couldn't answer a lot of these things because there's no testing done on a lot of stuff. There's no chain of evidence. I mean, Proctor had evidence in his car for 30 days while he drove around before he even turned it in to be tested. I mean, now Yuri's here having to answer all these questions. Another person who was straight up pissed off to be on the stand was Kelly Dever. The anger that she had towards Alan Jackson, which is Karen's defense attorney, one of the many, was undeniable.
Not Alan Jackson.
Right. That's why I call him AJ through a lot of this, because he's not the singer.
Yeah.
He's the very, very, very good defense attorney. Now, Kelly Dever was a cop, and she originally said to the FBI that she saw Brian Higgins and the police chief in the Sallyport alone with Karen's SUV for a, quote, wildly long time. But then she had a meeting with the police commissioner after she was subpoenaed by the defense to testify in the first trial and suddenly realized that the timing wasn't right. And she had a false memory of that event, that she didn't actually see them in the Sallyport with Karen's SUV.
So she was mad because she lied?
She was mad because when she changed her story, AJ told her that lying on the stand would mean that she could be charged with perjury. She wasn't getting it, though. She was just saying, like an angry child, that he was wanting her to say the original statement and commit perjury when it was brought to her attention that she wasn't at the station when the SUV was brought in. But what he was actually saying was that the perjury would be a problem because she changed her story after a special meeting with the police commissioner where she was told to, quote, do the right thing, end quote. That's what he was saying was the perjury, was her new story. She even said on the stand, my entire career depends on what I say here on the stand. And AJ quoted that in his closing arguments and said, you bet it does. Because basically, cover for your fellow cops or you're out on your ass. At least that's my opinion. So you can see the individual testimonies are still ever changing in this case too. Wading through all of the, was John seen in Karen's car when it was outside of the house? He was not. Where was Higgins' Jeep parked? Well, that depends on who you ask, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get to the meat of this trial. The videos from the bars were played. Portions of Karen's interviews were played. Those didn't do her any favors. They talked about the investigation, like the red Solo cups used to collect the blood samples that were never tested. And there was
in the snow.
Yes.
Yeah.
They used the leaf blower. So they show that video, like this is how we collected evidence with a leaf blower. And they also talked about the huge delay in interviewing people and their reports being filed. The longest delay of a report being filed was 581 days. Why did it take you that long? Like, because you had to make it up or what? Like, what's happening? But that was just to give the jury an idea of what was going on. Because like I mentioned before, the heavy hitters are yet to come.
Well, I think you promised us some science.
I did. Some science, some physics, some doctors, experts. We're getting into it. But first, I do believe that we talked about, or we did not talk about the snowplow driver in our first episode. So I wanted to go ahead and bring him up in this one. Because remember, when John was dropped off at the Albert's house, there was reported to be a dusting of snow at that time. But the snow was coming. A nor'easter was heading in. So we got strong winds. We got heavy snow coming. So the plows were out and making rounds that night. The one on the route where 34 Fairview was, so that's the Albert's house, was a guy named Lucky. Now, he testified that he knew where the Albert's house was because he used to deliver pizzas for their pizza shop, and he delivered there many times. During his rounds that night, he says that he never saw a body laying in the yard. And they have to pay attention to the sides of the streets because there's cars, because there's, kids' basketball goals. He actually hit one that night. There's things like that. So when you're on a plow, you're paying attention to everything surrounding what you're plowing. And he says he never saw John laying in that yard. He did, however, remember that there was a Ford Edge parked in the street outside the Albert's house by the flagpole at around 3:30 a.m., though. This was the second pass down that street, and it wasn't there the first time he came by at 2:45. So, who was that? Why were they there? Why were they parked right where John's body was? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, his timeline was questioned because allegedly he told the FBI that he started work at 11:30 and saw emergency vehicles at 3:30 a.m., which is not possible. They didn't get there until after 6, right? He testified that he never told the FBI that. Of course, he said the other agency. It was at a 2:30 start time that morning, so he started at 2:30. The math would say that there's a 4-hour difference, right? So if they say 11:30 to 3:30, that's 4 hours. 2:30 to 6:30, that's 4 hours. So somebody got their timing off. Yeah. You just got to figure out if it was the FBI or Lucky. And so take from all that what you will. Now let's talk experts and data.
Cell phone data?
Cell phone data and car data, because we got all these newfangled cars that tell on us. The Commonwealth spent a stupid amount of money for testing. They hired Aperture. There's a lot of talk about clock drift with them, so we'll get into that too. Like each device can have a different time. So they had to match up the time that they were getting from the phones versus the times they were getting from the Lexus. Mr. Burgess from Aperture said originally in his report that the SUV showed a triggering event at 12:31:38 and 12:31:43. The new report showed the triggering event was at 12:32:16. So we're almost a minute later. But a lot of his testimony got lost in the fact that he messed up. Not knowing the difference between bits and bytes in some of his data. Also, this happened on the 28th into the 29th of January. He and his report were saying it was the 29th into the 30th. So then you've got to question, did they get data from the right day? Because he was adamant. They kept asking him. So this was on the 29th. And he's like, yes, the 29th into the 30th. It says right there on the report, And okay, just making sure you know that you're wrong. You know what I mean? So we found out that also Mr. Burgess had been trying to get his degree for 17 years and still didn't have it, according to his CB. Now, he said he got a degree in general science. He's already got one of those, but that was actually a degree in general studies. So there was like little things like that that weren't adding up. He was kind of putting off that he knew more than he knew or was educated more than he was educated. Allegedly, his LinkedIn link was deleted from the Aperture website within 48 hours before he testified. So once they realized they were digging into it, his company was like, we'll just take that off. But he wasn't the only one from Aperture to testify. He was the tech expert. And then you have Mr. Whiffen, who's the digital forensic specialist. He talked a lot about John's cell phone battery temperature data, something I didn't even know that they could get data from. And what it showed was his battery temp was at 82 degrees at 12:13 a.m. and then steady dropped until it reached 50 degrees at 1:36 a.m. And you can actually see this under the picture of Karen and John. That little chart in the blue, you can see his temperature dropping, and then it kind of stalls. And it stayed at 50 degrees until 1:36 a.m. or from 1:36 a.m. until it started dropping again at 6:06 a.m.
So if he's outside in a snowstorm for 6 hours, how could the battery temp stay the same for so long?
Right. That's a good question. So in their closing argument, the Commonwealth says that since the phone was found underneath him, his body was actually concealing it from the wind and the cold.
Shut up.
And then when Karen, Jen, and Carrie found him and started moving him around to do CPR and things, it allowed the cold wind to get underneath him, and then it started dropping again.
Okay, I guess I can see that. Maybe.
What's the alternative?
What do you mean?
The alternative would be that the phone wasn't out there.
Exactly.
Yes. So they're like, oh, it's because he was on top of it, on the cold ground, while his body temperature was also dropping.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think before we get into the rest of it, we'll take a minute to hear from today's sponsor real quick.
Is your washer and dryer pushing your buttons instead of the other way around? Make a clean getaway before you spin out of control.
For sheets and giggles, go ahead and call My Laundry Solutions today at 800-535-4411 if you live in an apartment. We know you're pressed for time, so you can also tumble on over to MyLaundrySolutions.com, which is available 24/7. They are a wonderful company to do business with.
No credit check, free installations, all for about $1 a day.
That's sensational.
Give them a call. You won't be disappointed. Give them a call today.
Right now.
This
We'll
morning.
wait.
Yeah, we're waiting. Go ahead.
Make your phone call. All right. Whiffen also talked about the phone activity during the time frame of when Karen's SUV registered that triggering event. So between 12:31:52 and 12:32:09. Now, I know it might sound confusing. There's a lot of numbers going out, but it is important to mention the times in hours, minutes, and seconds because in this case, seconds matter. So at 12:31:52, the phone was in a pocket state, and that's what it sounds like. Your phone registers that it's concealed in something like your fabric of your pocket, right? So it kind of just chills out in there. At 12:32:03, the pocket status is cleared, the phone is taken out of the pocket, and 1 second later, Face ID unlocks the phone. 2 seconds later, the text from Jen McCabe saying, "Pull behind me," was read. And then at 12:32:09, the phone was locked using the push button on the outside. That's the last time that his phone was used, 12:32:09. The important part to remember is the original report for Karen's SUV showed the triggering event, which is when they say he was possibly hit, was in that 12:31:38 to 12:31:45 window. That window was before the phone was taken out of his pocket, the text was read, and then it was manually locked.
Well, wait a minute. I thought his phone was underneath him.
Well, this is when he was hit. They're trying to figure out when he was hit.
Oh. So 1 second after he was hit by the car?
Right. So they're saying he was hit by the car, and then he unlocked his phone, read a text, and locked it back.
Oh, so he's like, oh, shit, man.
Let me check this text.
Oh, fuck.
Yes.
Well, the Dodgers are going.
No. No. Now, they're saying, the Commonwealth is saying that she hit him and he fell and hit his head on the ground so hard that that's what killed him. He wouldn't have had the capacity to take his phone out and check his stuff. But this is why they're talking about clock drift, because Karen's black box on the SUV shows that she actually reversed at 12:32:04 and 12:30:12. So in that window. So if you account for the clock drift between the phone and the car times, this would have been when she hit him. She was at 74% throttle and reached 24 miles per hour during that triggering event. So they changed their stuff. At first, it was this time, and then they were like, well, his phone says that he was making activities on it after that time. And they're like, oh, clock drift. Okay, it was actually this time after. Yeah, that's what we'll say. I was like, okay. But his Apple Health data showed that before he even checked his phone, right? So this is before the phone was pulled out of his pocket and that text was checked. Yeah. Between 12:21:10 and 12:24:37, he walked 80 steps. He ascended or descended 3 floors. And then in between 1231 and 1232, there was 36 steps recorded with no elevation again.
Boy, he's just drifting all over the fucking place, isn't he?
Right. So even with their new time, it still doesn't make sense. At the last minute, someone who was supposed to testify got sick. So they called in a PI, lawyer, former federal agent, and real estate broker named John. Now, instead of just reading from the other guy's report, John actually went to 34 Fairview. This is during the trial, like right before he gets on the stand. He goes to 34 Fairview and takes his own measurements. And there are 3 doors to the front of this house. From the mailbox area to the front door to the house was 65 feet 9 inches. To the middle door was 70 feet 1 inch. And to the door that leads directly into the garage is 78 feet 3 inches. So all are within those 80 steps that John's phone shows that he took when he got out of Karen's car. But keep in mind that the flagpole is on the other corner of the yard, so he would have actually had to walk from a different direction from where the mailbox was. So either way, they're saying that it's showing he walked in that house.
And she supposedly went straight home after that.
Right. That was another thing. Some people say that she had time to hit him at 12:32 and then drive to his house where she connected to his Wi-Fi at 12:36. Okay. So some say that it wouldn't be possible with snow coming down like that. So it's a 5 to 6 minute drive, according to Google Maps, on a clear sunny day to get from 34 Fairview to John's house. Mm-hmm. But they're saying that in the snow, she made it in 4 minutes. Oh, yeah.
Seems legit.
Right. And there's lights. Like, people have driven this route a lot. There's a lot of stoplights.
Yeah, clock drift.
Let's just blame clock drift.
Yes, it's clock drift.
So moving on, they had testimony that one piece of glass that had held onto that bumper in the snow all the way to John's house, then back out to look for him, then to her parents' house, and then when it was trailered back to the police station where they actually found it. Remember? They're saying that that glass did not match the pieces of the glass that they had taken from the bar, the one he was supposedly holding when Karen hit him. Mm-hmm. So where did it come from?
The fucking dude's house.
Well, you would think they would have checked that, didn't
No,
you?
they wouldn't, because it's a cover-up.
They never went in that house. They never checked anything in that house. Nothing. Now,
and he had the dog, right?
This is the house with the dog.
Yes.
Chloe.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying. Those marks on his arms were dog bites.
We will get into that too. Experts. Now, super cool brain surgeon Dr. Wolf told us how awesome of a husband he is. And then he also talked about the raccoon eyes that John had due to the head trauma. And he said that they can present anywhere from between 1 to 3 hours after the injury, or it could take over 24 hours. So we really didn't get much from that, except that we still don't know when he received the head injury. I mean, nothing came from that.
Yeah, and I mean, what made him such a good husband?
Oh, he liked to brag. So he was asked to go through a typical day in his life, and he was like, I get up at about 4 a.m.
Of course.
I go and set stuff up for the day for the surgeries, and then I go home and make my wife a cappuccino every morning at 6 a.m., and then I go do surgeon shit. I'm paraphrasing, of course. So him making his wife a cappuccino every morning at 6 a.m. has not a damn thing to do with this case, but it humanized him and made him likable to the jury. He was also a pretty cool dude, but the fact that he threw that in there kind of rubbed people the wrong way. Like, who cares if you make your wife a cappuccino? Tell us about John's injuries. But anyways, people fell in love with him because of that. They talked about it for a while. Either way, he couldn't say how John O'Keefe got his head injury. He couldn't say when he got the head injury. He did talk about people falling in the snow. Like if they're shoveling snow and stuff, he sees it a lot where people will fall and get similar injuries. So he's leaning towards a fall from what I can hear. And then you had Dr. Russell, who is a double board certified doctor. She is an ER doctor and forensic pathologist who has an interest in dog bites and injuries. Here you go, Darren.
Yep.
She does believe that John's injuries to his arm were animal related.
Yep.
She was a big asset to the defense case, right along with fellow superwoman Dr. La Posada, another well-accomplished doctor. She described John's brain injury to us, like in a way that it made me help me understand. It is a coup contra coup. Don't you love that?
Mm-hmm.
She said it's a way to tell if someone was hit with something versus them falling and hitting their head. Since the brain is floating in cerebral spinal fluid, when you fall, it will cause your brain to actually hit the front of your skull if you fall backwards, right? So she said, this is definitely what happened to John. He fell. He did not get hit with something. So it wasn't the car. You can't say the car hit his head. Strike that right out. She says that he did not hit a flat surface either. It was something that had a ridge. And so they're like, oh, you mean like frozen blades of grass in the yard? And she said, no, absolutely not.
Idiots.
Yes. I mean, they're trying.
I mean, have you ever walked across blades of grass when they're frozen?
Crunch, crunch, crunch.
They break.
They break. Yeah, they're not. No.
It doesn't make them sharper.
No. No. Then no. She also says that the laceration to his right eye, because he had a laceration on his right eyelid, was a completely separate injury.
Like he got punched?
Like he got punched.
Exactly.
That's one of the possibilities, yes.
I mean, this is a big ass cover up. And Karen Reed is like just right in the middle of it, and she just clueless.
She's just a patsy.
Yep.
She says that with John's brain injury, he would be immediately incapacitated with a decreased level of consciousness, and he would not be able to make purposeful movements, and there would probably likely be seizure activity. So he's definitely not getting up. He's not walking. He's not using his phone. The brain will continue to swell, making the heart and breathing disrupt, and within 15 to 20 minutes, he could be dead. She also verified that the arm injuries happened while he was alive, and that they are consistent with an animal and not a taillight.
Yeah. Agreed.
Darren's like, I already said that.
Okay. Agreed.
Now, the defense had already tried to get Auntie Bev, the judge, to declare a mistrial when Dr. Russell was on the stand because Brennan asked her if she knew that there was no dog DNA on his hoodie. Now, DNA is not in evidence, so they're not allowed to talk about it. But so Alessi is up there banging the podium. We declare we want a mistrial, blah, blah, blah. And Auntie Bev's like, no, you're not getting that. And I'll throw in here for anyone who doesn't know, while there was no dog DNA on the hoodie, he is correct about that. There was pig DNA on his hoodie. And they're saying that that came from a pig-eared dog treat. So take that.
It was on the saliva of the dog.
Take that. But on the topic of the hoodie, we also need to talk about where Brennan fucked up.
And who's Brianna?
Brennan.
Who's Brennan?
Brennan is the special prosecutor that they brought in to try this trial, to do this one. Now, they had John's hoodie pressed in between some plexiglass for presentation at trial. Brennan held that up and pointed to the back of it to all these holes, saying, here, 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 pointing out damage that he was insinuating was akin to like a road rash type damage. Like he was hit and slid across the surface and it caused all this damage to the back of his hoodie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking while he was doing that didn't sound right. Now, I didn't watch the full first trial. I caught like highlights of the stuff that I missed and things like that, but I don't remember them ever saying anything about there being damage to the back of the hoodie. I always remembered them saying there was only damage to his right arm, where he had the damage to his actual arm.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is wrong. Eventually, the defense caught up, and there they went again. They were right back in front of Auntie Bev demanding a mistrial because those holes were from the criminalist processing the hoodie, taking samples and shit. So for Brennan to make it out like it was damage from the incident was not okay. Auntie Bev agreed that is not okay, but she did not declare a mistrial because of it. What she did was she told the jury when they came back in that those holes were made by the criminalist and were not present when John's body was found. But the question remains, did Brennan just get caught up in the moment and forget all of a sudden? Or was that done on purpose? Because once you plant, things will grow.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, you know, when you start lying and everything, your lie just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you finally just come out with the fucking truth because you're just going to get caught. Oh, yeah. I hope these son of bitches right here get caught because then they're going to have a trial on that alone.
Well, we'll talk about that too. Okay. A little bit. We also saw the Battle of the Crash Experts. Now, these were the ones I liked watching. The Commonwealth had Aperture, of course. We've talked about them. So Whiffen, he was the accident reconstruction dude for Aperture. He was definitely something else. He said that they bought an SUV, just like Karen's.
This is the most ridiculous thing that I freaking watched. I actually caught a little piece of this.
Mm-hmm.
Have you even said how much they paid them?
I'm about to, yeah.
Okay.
We'll get to it. I just said a stupid amount.
It was ridiculous.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
So Whiffen says that they bought this SUV in Texas. It's just like Karen's, same make, model, year. I believe it was even black. They have it shipped to California so they can do testing on it. But they didn't want to damage the Lexus, so they could then sell it afterwards. And then the Commonwealth would be left to pay the difference in price. So Whiffen dressed similar to John O'Keefe, which was a huge no-no for me, and held a glass in his hand. Well, he painted the tail light of the Lexus blue, and then he ran into it. Like he walked into it to see where that paint would transfer to. Then he had someone back.
He didn't walk into it. He crab walked into it.
Yeah, he
did. He hammer timed himself into it. Okay.
True. He did.
So,
and then he had someone back the SUV slowly into him. So he stood there while they slowly backed into him. And the blue paint was on his arm where John O'Keefe's injuries were on him. So they're showing that if an SUV backed into him, it could cause the damage that we see. The problem here is that Whiffen is a human. So in the video, you can actually see him lean into the SUV as it's coming towards him and then roll off the side when he was hit. Not like it would happen in real life.
Yeah. Like he was trying to make it match up. Like he was he's like, oh,
you're too far away here.
Oh, wait, it's just a little higher, a little lower. Oh,
right.
That's it.
Right.
Good job, guys.
We
got it. Nailed
it.
The woman's going down.
Yes.
Yep.
And it definitely matched up.
And hold on. What year was the Lexus? Because I want to look this up.
Oh, man. They probably said it 100 times in there. I believe it was a 2021.
2021.
I believe.
And it's a Lexus.
There's a picture of the back of it.
Is it like an RX 350?
Okay.
Because
these are the things he pays attention to, not the things.
I'll just do SUV. I'm trying to get like a price is what I'm trying to do.
Oh, I got you.
SUV.
It was a 2021 Lexus LX 570.
Okay. LX 570.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Price. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. So it definitely matched up, like I said, but his testimony was that he could not definitively prove that John was hit by a car because there wasn't enough information. The defense did ask them about money, just like Darren was just talking about. And we know that the Commonwealth paid them a $44,000 retainer. Then Whiffen signed an addendum to the contract showing the price of $325,000.
$325,000, which would pretty much what? I mean, that would bring it up to around what?
So no one knows if the retainer actually comes out of that $325,000 or if they did almost pay $400,000 for somebody who didn't even prove their theory. Because he said, well, you can't prove that he got hit by a car.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Basically, so what was it? They almost paid $400,000.
Yeah, if you round up.
Yeah, so
because
if you
then
round
you got
up,
the Lexus.
So if you round up, you almost pay the Commonwealth almost paid $400,000.
$369. Yeah.
To prove their little experiment,
and it didn't even work.
The car is only $25,000 used. All right, and they bought it used.
They did.
So used price $25,000. So you mark off $25,000. That's $375,000. That's still out there. That went right into their pocket.
This is all for testing.
And all they did was buy blue paint.
The paint.
They bought blue paint. They went to the Smurf store and bought blue paint and then had the dude Hammer Time walk into it.
True.
And say, oh, yeah, that's totally That's totally it, man. That's just, yeah, man. High fives. Good job, guys.
Yeah, the defense, AJ in his closing was like, you basically paid for a kindergarten experiment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in the Fed's investigation, the DOJ hired ARCA to do their accident reconstruction review. Now, I believe that they had them review Aperture's videos, reports, and things. And when ARCA's report came out, the defense hired them to testify on their behalf. Now, ARCA works for the NHL, or with the NHL, to figure things out like how impacts of people on the plexiglass works around the hockey arenas and stuff like that. So they're used to looking at things crashing into other things. How thick does things need to be? What kind of damage is done at what speed? You know, exactly what you would need for something like this. And this ARCA gave us Mr. Wolf, a.k.a. Dimples, a.k.a. Crash Daddy. He gets up there and he talks about how they also bought a Lexus, but their plan was to actually test it. Also, since the incident happened during cold temperatures and not in California, where Aperture is, they got extra tail lights so they could keep replacing them after testing. And since the goal was to see if hitting John O'Keefe with the taillight would break the taillight, like the Commonwealth is saying, they kept those extra taillights in a freezer to keep the temperatures low because temperatures will affect how things break.
Exactly. And that's smart. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like this other, Aperture.
Aperture was the first one, yeah.
Apertures, I mean, the whole thing was like they didn't even do nothing that would break the taillight. And where did the Lexus go after they was done?
They sold it.
Did they sell it?
They sold it and then charged the Commonwealth the difference in price.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, there was no, I mean, hell, they could have put it through a whole crash course and put dummies out there and did the whole thing, and it would have been a hell of a lot better test than what he did.
Yeah, because they were trying not to damage the car when the purpose was to see what kind of damage happened to the car. That makes no sense.
They was trying to get as much money back as they could to put back in their pocket.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was quite a difference in the testing because also when you're working with people like the NHL and you work in crash reconstruction all the time, you have machines that will run into things and you have crash test dummies. Like we will see Rescue Randy comes into play.
Yeah.
It's just, there's such a big difference. Now, ARCA ran the tests at different miles per hour too. So you got 10, 17, 15, 29, 24, and then again, a full-on hit at 29 miles per hour, since no one really knows how fast that car would have been going at impact. They do not run into each other with the car. They use Rescue Randy. So they really ran into him. They did break the taillight. That happened. We know it happened. But they could not break the diffuser. So the diffuser is what the investigators were saying were those clear pieces of plastic that they found at the scene along with the red pieces of plastic from the taillight. The diffuser is inside the taillight housing and it helps spread and soften the light, reduces glare, and creates more of an illumination. That's why they get so bright at night. So lots of people point out that her taillight was obviously well illuminated in the videos from that morning, and her diffuser was almost completely gone in all the photos from the Canton PD. Now, it had to be busted, according to the investigators, whenever she hit John. But in none of the testing that ARCA did, not a single time did that diffuser break. I don't care what kind of test they did. It did not break. But hers was almost completely gone. It was so shattered.
It's because they was back there in the back fucking hitting it with their damn baton.
Exactly.
They had to have some kind of evidence so they could throw it in the snow by where he's found.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. This is where it all happened.
Yeah. So that diffuser.
Arrest that woman.
Yes, exactly. So that diffuser put a lot of doubt on exactly how damaged it was before it got there. And there was also a police officer who testified about the taillight from that day who was not from Canton Police. Amazing. When Proctor went to Dighton to get Karen's SUV from her parents' house, he did the cop thing and he called Sergeant Barrows at 2:30 p.m. to tell him, hey, we're going to be in your town because we have a vehicle deceased that was used in a homicide. So Barrows goes to the house to assist, and make sure everything's cool. and he sees the SUV, and they're telling him, oh, she backed into a guy this morning and killed him. So he looks at the taillight, and he testified that that taillight was broken, and a portion of the taillight was missing, but it was the size of a dollar bill, and it was on the side of the taillight. The main portion of the taillight was intact. Now, if you look at our thumbnail, that bottom left picture is a picture from the Canton PD of her taillight, where the entire main portion of that taillight is completely gone. This cop is saying when the cops took the car, that main piece was there and intact.
Yeah.
So there you go, Darren.
I'm telling you, they had to lock it in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had to make their lie
believable. Because Proctor was the one who found all those pieces of taillight a couple of weeks later.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, he found them.
I mean, where's he at now?
Oh, he got fired.
Oh, yeah, he got fired. Yeah, right.
Here you go.
Right.
And we could go on for days about this because we know that Proctor was in there. We know they inverted the Sally Port video where Proctor was standing at the back of her car with nobody else around. You know what I mean? But it's hard to cram 36 days of trial in under an hour. So one more important witness that we need to talk about is Rentschler from ARCA. He's the one who pointed out that Aperture was leaning into the car when they were doing their testing, right? Mm-hmm. He also talked about there being 9 holes in the right arm of the hoodie, but there were 36 abrasions to his arm, and they were all going in different directions. And that's the picture next to Karen and John. It's got the actual arrows. That was his picture showing the direction of all the wounds and how different they are. Mm-hmm. So they're saying there's no way that came from a taillight busting. Sorry. Ooh, lots of talking. AJ brings this back up in his closing because how does this happen? And why is there no blood, no skin, or no tissue from John on any of the 46 pieces of taillight that were collected at the scene?
Yeah.
If it caused all that damage, there should be something on it, and there's not. He also had one of the best closing arguments I've ever heard. Auntie Bev was only going to give them an hour each for closing, but the defense asked for more time, so she graciously allowed them an hour and 15 minutes. She gave them 15 more minutes. She's so generous. She's received a lot of negativity about how she judges, so just keep that in mind. At one point in the trial, someone did a tally, and the defense had objected 24 times. She overruled 22 of those objections, just shut them straight down. Mm-hmm. But the Commonwealth objected 40 times, and she sustained every single one of them. So you tell me if she's biased or not, because that's what's going around, that she's part of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so much for being neutral is what it is. She's
definitely not even close. But in the defense's closing, they hit the high points. That the Commonwealth expert said there's no x-rays of John O'Keefe's arm to see if he had any fractures, right? That's a big question. Yeah. Were any of his bones broken in his arm? And the Commonwealth's expert from Aperture was like, no, there's no x-rays to even see it. They don't even make note of it. But when ARCA was up there, they were like, well, if you'll look at these x-rays of John's arm, you'll see that there's no breaks.
Really?
Yeah, there was 100% x-rays of John's arm.
I just didn't want to bring him in.
Because it proved that there were no breaks.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just one of them deals where it's like, oh, now our lie's getting told.
Yes. There were no breaks.
Shown.
Yeah. No breaks, no bruises. Not one expert, according to AJ in this whole thing, who testified, whether they be testifying for the Commonwealth or the defense, not a single one of them said he was hit by a car. Because they can't. And he talked about how suspicious Brian Higgins was. Like Darren was saying. That he texted Karen. Because remember, him and Karen were having a little text exchange of, you're hot. Are you serious? You're hot. Before this happened. They even shared a kiss. Then they go to the bar, and he sees Karen there with John, and he texts her, well, she never texts him back. Mm-hmm. So in these videos at these bars, you can see that he's peacocking, play wrestling in the bar with Brian Albert. He saw John kiss Karen on the head, which he didn't like too well. He texted John asking if he was, you come into the house? Right before he got there, even though he barely said 2 words to him the whole night. Mm-hmm. Then when he left the house, he went to the police station We saw that video. He was on the phone with somebody when he was at the police station in the middle of the night, but he doesn't remember a phone call. And then he destroyed his phone. So you can't even find out who he was talking to. Most people remember mostly from this closing argument because he started it out with, there was no collision, there was no collision, there was no collision. And I think that stuck. It stuck a lot. Now, poor Brennan, who had been on a downward spiral for some time, he was snapping at witnesses. He was lying about evidence. He was just going through it at this point. He told the jury that Karen was drunk. She hit him and she left him to die. They had been arguing that day, but they went out drinking anyways. They did calculations that put her blood alcohol level at 2 to 3 times the legal limit at the time of when they believe John O'Keefe was hit.
Calculations.
Correct. Because
not proof.
Well, because even though she says in her interviews that she was drinking.
Okay.
Hey,
I've been drinking.
Yes, but listen. They count how many drinks she has. So she's not only getting a gin and tonic, she's also getting an extra shot and putting it in the gin and tonic.
Okay.
So she has like 6 or 7 of those, which equates to, keep adding shots to it. She drinks all of those. She says in the interview she shouldn't be driving. She says that I wouldn't have been on the freeway. I can tell you that much, and things like that. She even does a 3-point turn at the Alberts, which some believe is when she hit him. But they had to calculate it because the next morning when they find John, she made an utterance that she might hurt herself. So her dad was like, please 5150 her. So they took her in to be evaluated. She was at the hospital. And that's when they took her blood alcohol. So then they had to figure out if you're this drunk now, how drunk were you 6 hours ago, 8 hours ago, 9 hours ago? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, there's no video of her after the bar. Did she drink more when she got home?
Did she?
Did she? Nobody knows.
Who cares?
Well, they're saying she should not have been driving.
Well, hell, they're also saying she fucking ran him over and knocked him fucking 3,000 feet back.
Well, he said, not 3,000, 7.
I know.
So John's phone, according to the Commonwealth, moved for 20 seconds after he got out of the car. But data shows that he did not leave the area by the flagpole. He says that some intimate that the glass on the bumper wasn't from the drinking glass, but the black stir straw that was in that drink was found in the street. So how'd that get there if it wasn't from when the glass broke? But another question people have is how did that glass break the way it did, but he had no cuts on his hand? But I digress. She had pulled up 33 feet at one point and then reversed for 53 feet. This is when we were talking about it was at 24 miles an hour at 74% throttle. That's 20 feet past where she would have originally been. So if she would have hit him when she went in reverse, wouldn't she have seen him in the headlights was my question. But either way, he brings this up. They talk about it a couple of times. And maybe that's the point, is to show guilt. That she backed up, she clearly saw him in the headlights and she still left him. But either way, Brennan says his phone recorded data all night, but it didn't move in location. He says that she knew she hit him, and then he played an interview of her saying, could I hit him? She said it was windy. She had U2 blaring in her car. And she said, I don't think I hit him, but could I have clipped him? So this is her interviews with Dateline and shit like that. Another thing he pointed out was that she had 28 minutes of unaccounted for time that morning. So she called Carrie and Jen. Was like, John didn't come home. I think John's dead, blah, 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 according to what they said. And then she drove to Jen's house, but there were 28 minutes in between there that was unaccounted for. So he's asking if maybe, just maybe, she stopped somewhere along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe she drove by Albert's house and saw him.
Right. So maybe she drove by, maybe she saw him laying there and she went and got the girl so she would have witnesses that she didn't have nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. So the jury gets the case and goes into deliberations. They did end up asking 3 questions and then another one because there was an issue with the confusing verdict forms, just like the first trial. And Bev was back at it again. When they went up there, they had asked the 3 questions, right? Mm-hmm. And they answered them and then they went on break or whatever. And then they come back in and they're like, okay, I've got this one too, but it came in before those 3 questions did. So when she reads the question in a sidebar or whatever, Alan Jackson is like, I think you might be able to just ignore that because I'm pretty sure you answered that question.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
It's okay. He was like, I'm pretty sure you answered that question with the other 3 questions that you answered since it came in first. And so when she came back on the record, she was like, I know you wanted me to ignore that, but I'm not going to. So it's like, really? And he's like, I didn't say like ignore it. You know, he was trying to explain himself, but she wouldn't hear none of it. She was like, I don't care. I'm not doing what you want, you know, and went on about her business. But it all came out in the end, and they were able to finally reach a unanimous verdict of not guilty.
Good.
Now, she was found guilty on one charge, which was an OUI charge, which is operating under the influence, basically a DUI, where we're at. So once they said not guilty, so, you know, people can watch this live stream trial, and people outside were watching it. So once you hear the first 2 charges of the manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter, and they say not guilty for both of those, you hear the crowd outside erupt, like go nuts. I said abrupt, erupt. They went nuts. You could hear it through the court, through the cameras. Like you could almost not hear the people talking in the court. It was wild. They said they've never heard anything like that at all because there was a crowd. There was an estimated 3,000 people outside of the courthouse on verdict watch.
Wow.
I know. And Law and Crime stopped their verdict clock at 20 hours, 30 minutes, and 40 seconds, 20, 30, 40. So these people were out here for days, waiting for a verdict, wearing all pink because they were kept away from the courthouse during trial. They were not allowed to be up there. They had a barrier.
Yeah.
Now, the defense requested sentencing immediately. She was like, you want to do sentencing next week? And they're like, we could do it right now. Let's do it right now. We're not coming back. And so they got Brennan. He offered 1 year probation and she was ordered to attend DUI classes, basically.
How long has she been in jail for?
She has not been in jail.
Oh, okay. So she's been out and walking.
Yeah, she got arrested and bonded out and she's been out this whole time. She was actually very, very, very involved in her defense in her own right.
Okay. I thought she was in jail this whole damn time. I was like, what the hell are they even trying to give her anything for?
No, that's why she's getting probation and stuff like that, because she has no time served to take it from. And we've already heard, and that's why she was able to do interviews and shit. We've already heard from a couple of jurors in interviews. We've heard from the McAlberts, as we've said. They've already done their stupid interviews. And then her attorneys, Alessi and Yannetti, loved their interviews. Yannetti has been with her since the start, and he actually cried when they read the verdict because he's like, finally, it's over. Her defense team, all of them were super good and super smart because it was their idea to add the OUI charge.
Yeah.
Which is weird for the defense team to want to add charges to their client for the second trial, but that gave the jury something to find her guilty of.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they were worried about in the first one. And why it was declared a mistrial, because they're like, well, she's not guilty of driving under the influence. She's done some shit.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, well, here's one thing that we can all agree on. She was drunk driving.
And the one thing she admitted to.
And she admitted to it in her interviews. Yeah. Yeah. They could, like I said, they actually couldn't prove it. So they tested her the next day and then calculated it, but they didn't
That's the whole thing, though. I don't think they should have calculated it.
Well, they have to do something, I guess.
I mean, that's just like doing a lie detector test. I mean, come on.
True. Because your body, like, it does things different.
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
You can have one damn shot of whiskey and you're over here sneezing your fucking head off.
I am.
I'm just saying, everybody's different.
Yeah, it's very true.
So, and we know people that can drink a damn 30-pack of beer and it not phase them one damn bit.
100%.
Everybody's different. That's
very true. That's very true. And that was one of the main things, but they needed something to hold on to. And so they gave them an OUI and there you go. Now, here's where we talk about ARCA again, because I didn't want to not mention this, but ARCA, they were actually paid $50,000. And then $20,000 between the DOJ and then the Karen Reed defense team. So total, They were paid $70,000, and they did not charge extra for a Lexus, and they didn't do anything, and they used better equipment. They did better testing.
And that sounds more reasonable than anything.
Right.
All right. 70 grand.
Right.
Versus 400 grand.
Yep.
Somebody was just there for a payday.
Oh, yeah. And they didn't even
and
do
you know what?
Wrong.
And they will never live that down.
Oh, no, they will not. No, they will not. Because that name is out there. This trial was so broadcast worldwide. You can't not hear that name.
Pretty much done.
Anytime I'll hear a name that sounds like Aperture, I'm going to be like, oh, just like those people in the Karen Reed case.
Yep.
Now, we did expect to hear more about Chloe, like Darren was talking about, the dog, the Albert's German Shepherd mix, but we did not. Chloe was actually put in witness protection, which is what I call it, but I'm kidding, kind of. She was rehomed to Vermont, and her name was changed. So we heard nothing. We thought that as a rebuttal witness, the Commonwealth would call the expert who actually allegedly found Chloe and took molds of her teeth, but they did not. Like I said, by the end, Brennan was spiraling. He was so done.
Yeah.
He was done. Now, Wonder Woman, as I was calling Dr. Russell, one of the jurors was actually a woman from Brazil who is an attorney there. She doesn't practice here, but she was an attorney in Brazil. And so now she was on this jury, and she said 100% she believes John died in that house. And she also said that she knew Karen was innocent for like the last 3 weeks of trial. Like she didn't even need, she was done. She was done. And a lot of them felt that way.
And I felt that way from the first time you told me this story.
Yes.
I knew this right here was just we covered the April Wilkins case and everything, and then you got this Karen Reed, and it's just one of them deals where it's like
railroading
bad, and just dealt a bad hand.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, there's so much stuff that you could dive into on this. I'm just hitting highlights, like points that people have mostly talked about. But there's so much, there's so many. It didn't go through 8 weeks of trial without a bajillion witnesses. So if you want to deep dive, there's plenty to deep dive on if you want to get into it. We also, like I said, we covered the first trial. So you can go back and listen to ours too, where we talk more about the McCabe's and the Alberts, and they're redoing their basement floor and selling their house and, things like that immediately after. So you might want to check that out too. Go back and listen to us.
Yeah, go back and listen to that.
My feeds now are slowly gravitating over to Kohberger because that's the next big trial. It's going to be grueling as far as how long it's going to take. I think it's set for August to November or something like that. But for Karen Reed, she's done. She's free. She left that courthouse right after, and she's just got some probation. She hasn't, I don't see that she's done any interviews yet, but it's still very new. But like I said, her lawyers have, jurors have. So I imagine we're probably going to see a docuseries that she might direct because she's very involved in her own defense. Her dad is awesome. He was out there too. But there's still also the civil suit. So John's family has filed a civil wrongful death suit against Karen, and it is still ongoing. They haven't coming to a conclusion.
Well, they need to file it against the other people.
Sadly, after they started reading the verdict and the people started cheering outside, you could see his family in the back get up and walk out because they are 100% convinced that Karen did this. Now
they need to be convinced of the other people.
You can't overlook the shitty investigator.
It sucks. It sucks that they lost it.
That doesn't change.
That doesn't change. And this doesn't change the fact. But the whole thing is that they're fixated on her, that she did it because somebody told her that.
Well, there's a lot of people that believe she did it. There's just not enough proof to prove she did it. But there's a lot that believe she did it.
I don't think one bit that she did it. I never have.
Me neither.
But I mean, it's just one of them deals. I think this was a cover up because they was all drunk and everything. They was in the house. They started doing their little shadow boxing thing or whatever they did. Got a little out of hand. Dog attacked.
It might not even have been shadow boxing because a lot of people say Higgins was pretty pissed off that she chose him. And you can see in some of those videos, he's pointing at John and pointing outside.
And that might have been it. They might have just been, having a pissing contest and everything, trying to see who was better.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
But either way, I mean, I'm glad she's done. I mean, hopefully done with it now, but
yeah,
but at least she got the verdict that she'd been waiting for.
And a lot of talk has been about, well, now they can find out who really did it. No, they can't. And I'll tell you why. Because if they try to prosecute somebody else for this, which they can, I can't say they can't. But if they do, they have a built-in defense. Because if you come at me and was like, I think you did it, I'm going to say, no, you don't. You think Karen did it.
Yeah.
What is my evidence? Those last 2 trials.
Yeah.
So trying to prosecute somebody else for it, it's really a one-shot kind of deal. Unless you got something new to charge them with. But they would have to be able to prove all this stuff in the conspiracy. You have to prove it or they can't go after anybody. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. It's not over, that's for sure. But Karen did say when she walked out onto the steps, one of the things she said was, nobody has fought harder for justice for John than me and my team. Because they're the ones who are uncovering all this corruptness. They're the ones that are investigating that side of things. Nobody else is. So I can see where she's coming from there.
And yet his family's trying to sue her.
They are 100%. They're already in the middle of the suit. Yep. This might affect things. They might settle or something now. But anyway,
Well, like I said at the beginning of the episode, let's say it again at the end of it. Did I say it at the end or at the end?
You can say it at the end.
Anyway, no, did I say at the end?
Oh.
At the beginning of the episode, I was just letting everybody know that this weekend on Friday the 27th, today when this episode drops, we're doing a fireworks show. We're not doing it. Bigsby's doing it.
We're going to be there.
We will be there. We will be there with our food truck
yeah.
and Country Boy Smoke Q. So come out to Bentley Park in Bigsby, Oklahoma, and enjoy some great food. We got our award-winning barbecue, and come get you guys some loaded ribbon fries or whatever you guys want. We got sandwiches and nachos and spuds and turkey legs and all kinds of stuff. So make sure you guys come out. Everything starts at 6 o'clock and it ends at 10 o'clock. So
after
come
dark.
out. Yep, after dark. So come out and have a good time with your kids. And there's a little splash pad out there for the kids and stuff like that. So just come out and have a good time.
Yeah, we'll see y'all there.
All right.
Now, if you like our content here, though, please like, share, and subscribe. All the fun things that just take 1 second of your time, but greatly help us out. So like, share, subscribe.
Yep. And as always, don't forget to tell your friends, because you know what? They deserve to see us too.
They deserve it.
All right, guys. Until next time.
Bye.